Hey gamers, it's Cody from Let's Play Station, and Horizon Zero Dawn is the game that we're going to be talking about today, and it's one of those games that it's hard to talk about because I don't know how to express how much I truly love this game or how it affected me. Horizon is such a beautiful game. It truly moved me and it made me never want to put it down. From the amazing visceral combat to the story to the world and especially Aloy herself, I loved almost every single moment I played this game. With that said guys, I'm still going to be giving you the good, the bad, and the mix to tell you today if you should skip it, try it, or buy it. Spoilers, I'm definitely going to be telling you to buy it, but stay tuned anyway. Thanks. This game, I don't even know where to begin. This game has so much wonderful things I love in it. I guess I'll start with the story because why not? Horizon Zero Dawn has a story that I knew little to nothing about going in and was only told that it was captivating, moving, well-paced, and told it would keep me at the edge of my seat throughout my whole playthrough of said game. And I have to say, everything they said was correct. The story grips you in immediately, with a sense of sympathy for the main character, confusion as to why she is treated the way she is, and also intrigue in how the world works. To give some context, the very first thing you see in the game is Aloy as a little baby girl being held by Rost, her surrogate father. On the way to a mysterious naming ritual, we are informed of how they are both outcasts. We learn that Rost still wants to keep the tribe's rituals, that Aloy has no mother, and due to this, Rost is performing the naming ritual in the mother's place. Rost discusses the beauty of the world, and we get our first glimpse at creatures of steel as described by Rost, and get our first glance at the robot creatures that we will encounter many of during our playthrough. When we finally make it to our destination, we run into Matriarch Teersa. Rost seems surprised and even slightly delighted that she has come not to stop the blessing and naming, but has come to help her be blessed and declared. A moment of peace comes as we see a tender moment between Aloy and Rost as he declares her name while Teersa blesses her. That moment of peace is then interrupted by Lancera exclaiming disagreement with the blessing and even calling Aloy a curse. Lancera even goes as far as to tell Rost that he was instructed to raise the child as an outcast with him, but they said nothing of love. She is then interrupted by Teersa, who debates with the other matriarch while Rost expresses his love for Aloy, saying he will always be there for her. At the very beginning of this game, we feel a deep connection, sympathy, and love for Rost, and in extension Aloy because of the deep parental love he shows towards her, even going as far as to do everything he can to instruct her in the world, and to be declared in a tribal tradition. We see glimpses of what the world will look like and function like through our brief moment of seeing nature and the state of the world's creatures. We see a tribal tradition and blessing, and even witness a debate about said blessing. Then lastly, we see how the tribe treats outcasts generally with disregard and disrespect. While giving us a taste of the world and tribal traditions, it most importantly gives us a connection to the main characters we'll be following and a sense of mystery. Why does Aloy have no mother? Why are Rost and Aloy outcasts to begin with? What are the tribe's beliefs that lead to these traditions and titles? Who is All-Mother? Why do outcasts get treated with such discontempt? And lastly, how did robot dinosaurs become a regular thing and how did that happen? You want to understand how a world can have such technical marvels as those machines, but also that same effect how tribal traditions fit into that world at the same time. Simply put, this game does a beautiful job of putting this amount of love, detail, emotion, and effort into every inch of this game's story, and I would discuss it further, but I feel it's a story that you must experience as blind as possible in order to get the full effect. Luckily, this amount of detail is not just in the main storyline either. No, this game has some amazing side plots and side missions that will make you want to see the ending all the way through to 100% as much as possible. That's not even mentioning the amazing Frozen Wilds DLC. This game is a sell on its story alone and its character interactions alone. Luckily, the game also has awesome performances by voice actors all around that perfectly capture each character perfectly, Aloy herself being the biggest standout. She is calm, cool, and extremely skilled, but is also very human. She has emotional outbursts, sympathy, and even tragic moments. Throughout the story, you really see her become her own woman, and at the same time a leader to look up to. She's a character you want to root for, and she expresses just as much interest as you, the player, in finding answers and in becoming better. Most importantly, she has an emotional and believable coming-of-age story that will move you indefinitely in some way, and at least in one or two standout moments. Moving on, the gameplay is fantastic and insanely natural for the player. You start with a bow and arrow, which is simple enough, but you find yourself with more and more variety as the game goes on, and it keeps on giving. Multiple weapons and weapon types, different ammo for each weapon, elemental and specific area weaknesses for different enemies, and a skill tree that actually feels useful and not just tacked on. Every skill earned and every weapon or equipment gained feels viable and useful depending on your playstyle. Want to go in arrows blazing? You can! Want to attack from above and far away? You can! Want to primarily focus on not being seen? You can! Want to set traps and tripwires? You can! And the greatest thing of all is the game does a great job of letting the player learn all the weapons at their own pace and in their own way. The game gives you each weapon slowly and encourages you to use each one in different scenarios, but the game also doesn't hold your hand, and if you have the resources, you can get most if not all the weapons fairly early on if you choose to do so. Most impressively is that each weapon, playstyle, and tactic actually feels useful and is supported. I never once felt like I was being forced into a different playstyle, but found myself switching my strategy depending on each situation and group of enemies I was facing just due to how useful each style of play was in the game. It was one of the first times in a long while that I didn't consistently just use the same style or weapons and found myself constantly experimenting, trying new things, and the more my knowledge expanded how to fight the robots and enemies, the more I got creative. Overall, this game is insanely replayable and fun due to this because everything feels rewarding and useful. There's no useless items, weapons, or upgrades. Lastly, the exploration is also very well implemented and a lot of fun. It does allow you to fast travel, but it only allows you to do so to areas you've already been to, and you have to actually buy a fast travel pack or golden pack to do so, which truly makes the game rewarding because you are required to truly explore and know the world, but it lacks the dull and tedious task of a lot of games have later on because of the ability to fast travel once you've explored areas. It's a perfect setup that encourages exploration while not punishing you for it. Lastly, this game looks gorgeous, and I feel the game truly speaks for itself. I mean, just look at it. The world is vibrant, colorful, distinct, and wonderful. The enemy design for the creatures is especially impressive, as they all look similar enough for the story to make sense and for them to be somewhat related, but distinct enough that you can clearly tell them apart. This game also runs like butter. It is smooth, and I had no lagging, no pop-ins, nor did I have any skipping throughout my entire playthrough. Overall, I adore this game. I could go on for hours, but I won't because it's an experience you really need to have for yourself. With that said, let's move on to the bad. This section will be very brief, as this game only has one issue I would actually declare a problem or flaw, and that is simply put, the lip syncing for this game is very noticeably off for a lot of the time playing it, and it sadly can break immersion at times. I personally didn't find it to be too distracting after I got used to it, but it is a shame because when it works really well, but when it's off, it is really off. I would consider this more of a small issue, but it still is an issue all gamers should be aware of. With that said, let's move on to the mixed. When fighting against the robot dinosaurs, the combat really comes alive and it feels bombastic, huge, unique, and just awesome. With that said, the same sadly can't be said for the human enemies you face and for the bandit camps you help clear out. Now, these encounters aren't terrible, and the stealth in these sections are actually the most satisfying when performing stealth kills, but it just lacks in the variety and strategy you receive when facing the robotic enemies. Due to this, I just found it rather dull when needing to face them because it usually involved me using stealth kills and just my plain bow and arrow to take the enemies down with really no other strategy to it other than that. With that being said, you can implement other strategies, but the game never forces you or challenges you to do so, and so these encounters just become dull rather fast. The game also has climbing mechanics that, simply put, are just too magnetic and automatic to be fun. The game never really allows you to explore through climbing. You always have to go through a predestined path or up or down a mountain or valley with yellow handholds highlighting where you can jump and where you can climb. You just never feel completely in control of your movement in these moments. It isn't a huge issue as you actually won't be climbing for very long periods of time, and even when you do need to climb, the mechanic serves its purpose well, but it just isn't incredibly engaging to use. Lastly, the game does suffer from a few too many collectibles for my taste. Now this is more of a personal preference than anything else, but I've just never loved pointless collectibles that don't really do much. The game does have some fantastic collectibles in the journal entries and the data, audio, and video logs, but it also has a lot of pointless collectibles that are just there to be picked up, and I just don't find myself wanting to go after them due to all the other awesome side quests and meaningful quest related and world building collectibles that you could go after. It's again not a flaw, but just something to be aware of if you are planning on 100%ing the game. With that said, time to give my overall thoughts. Horizon Zero Dawn is a game for the ages, and is simply put a game worth buying a PS4 for. It has amazing combat, a fantastic world and lore. Most of all, it has a story and main character that you will absolutely love from beginning to end. And that isn't even mentioning the replayability here on offer, as this game will last you anywhere from 40 to 60 hours alone, as well as a great New Game Plus mode and some truly worthwhile DLC. Overall, this game is well worth the price, and I give it my rating of buy it. If you haven't played it, play it. If you don't have a PS4, get one. This game is fantastic. I would recommend buying the complete edition as it also includes the amazing DLC. And if you haven't gotten this game already, be sure to check it out. It is by far the best PS4 game I have played thus far. With that said, guys, if you liked the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Tell us why you liked it in the comments down below, and while you're at it, why not hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you're always notified when the next upload will begin. With that said, thank you so much for watching. I love all you guys, and I'm grateful for every single subscriber, viewer, comment, or like that I will get. And this is Cody from Let's Play Station, and I'll see you guys next time.